Hey, how's everyone doing out there? Welcome to a Word Hole Media presentation of Major League Holes in the Hole and Sox Top Thing. I'm Pete.
I'm Ryan. You are in the hole with Major League A-holes and Sox Type Thing. I'm going to start a new thing now that we're in 2024. I'm going to give out our web addresses. We are on the web at majorleagueaholes.com. We are also at soxtypething.com and aesthetics.shop, ASSTHETICS.shop, where you can get our merchandise. We're
Buy
on
some
social,
shit.
yeah, we're on social media at pretty much everywhere at Major League A-holes and at Sox Type Thing. Check out our YouTube page, our blowing up YouTube page. We're getting subscribers, we're getting all sorts of views. That's kind of where we're seeing the biggest growth in this podcast, whatever this is. So yeah, check out our YouTube page where you can see these. We cut up all the clips from the podcast and just repurpose them on YouTube so you can digest us in smaller bouts, smaller pieces.
Is it like a vidcast then, or what?
I don't know what you call it. We'll have to consult the cool kids to figure out what you call that kind of shit. Vlog. That's they call it.
Yeah, like vlog. Yeah,
it was like 5 years ago. I don't think anyone calls
vlog.
it that anymore. But anyway, get that out of the way. Yeah, we've got our first episode of February in 2024. I believe pitchers and catchers report in less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I know the Tigers' first spring training game is on my birthday on February 24th, so we're just over 3 weeks away from that. So things are ramping up. It's going to be warm this weekend. The sun's going to be out for the first time, I feel like, this year. So
it's sunny and 50 in the Chicagoland area today. I mean,
good. Yeah, we're in the 40s here in mid-Michigan, but I've not seen the sun in 6 weeks. So taking my vitamin D gummies to replenish my whatever that is,
with my weed in it.
No, I had to stay off of that. I've had some bad issues with that lately, so I'm out. Regardless, we've got major White Sox news to talk about since our last podcast. You've got a potential new stadium, Sox Park 3.0, as I like to call it. Lots to talk about there. That's a fascinating subject. We've got a new voice of the Sox to talk about too. I'm dying to hear your thoughts. We haven't even discussed this at all. You've got other things going on with the Sox too that I'm sure you're going to bring up. Oh, Sox Fest 25 was announced out of the blue.
Yes.
The long drought is over. Meanwhile, on the north side of town, Cubs aren't technically hibernating, I wouldn't say anymore. They've made a couple moves. I've got some thoughts on what's happening over there. The MLB pipeline rankings came out, and the Cubs were viewed very favorably there. In fact, you might call them the farm system champions. We'll get into that as I've mocked your White Sox years ago. But we'll talk about that. The Tigers made a surprise signing this week. I was kind of stunned by it, actually, of Colt Keith. I'll get into the details of that. I'm even going to surprise you over there, Pete, with an A's segment. Could the A's be disbanded before they even make it to Las Vegas?
Interesting.
Yeah, that's the proper reaction to that. So I'll break that down. And we'll end the show with a very underwhelming aesthetics as the Yankees, Marlins, and Nationals all release new uniforms. That fairly underwhelming. I think we might have a lot of middle fingers down for that, but maybe not all, but we'll see. Hopefully we get there at some point. We're off to a strange start for this episode already, but we've got plenty of time. We're starting early here on a thirsty Thursday. I've got a Surly Furious over here. You've got a War Pig, is it?
Yeah, War Pig's Foggy Geezer. Named, of course, after Geezer Butler. So
all right. I say we go ahead and jump into the news.
Well, we started talking about the possibility of this new stadium for the White Sox last episode, and it's really starting to gain a lot of traction,
legitimacy, with the Chicago Sun-Times actually reporting they're in serious talks with the city.
Yeah, they're in serious talks with the city. Now renderings have been released. I was a little disappointed. It is not a retractable dome as some of the original leaked stories had it.
Okay, yeah, you and I were partying in Chicago out in the suburbs a couple weekends ago, and you and I were talking about that. I had not seen anything about the retractable roof aspect of it, but I
Yeah,
guess the earlier ones had shown it, but I didn't see
yeah,
those. So
but
that's off the table, or who
that
knows
well,
right
who
now?
knows if it's
We're
really
years,
it's a rendering that the development company did for them.
I love renderings though.
Well, yeah, when you look at it, there's the rendering for the White Sox, and um then there's a rendering for like museum that they pitched going there. So this development company's pitched other people besides the White Sox.
Well, it's like this is the 78 is the area,
Yes,
undeveloped area in the South Loop. What is
60
it?
acres.
Yeah, it's at Roosevelt and Clark.
Yeah.
It's literally the last piece of Chicago that's been undeveloped. It's had a weird history that the whole city could develop around it over 200 years, and this remains grass and dirt right next to the river. I think there's been some weird ownership of that real estate. There's been some shady ownership, international ownership that ran into legal issues several times when different deals were supposedly struck and then fell apart. So I think we're a long ways from the finish line, but it sounds like the city wants this to happen. I
We know Rob Manfred wants it to happen.
Yes, he had comments about that this week, didn't he?
Yeah, he had comments about it this week because he's behind it 100%. Because I'm glad you're sitting down for this. Jerry Reinsdorf has assured him that it will not be tax dollar funded.
That's I saw that, and that's of course misleading because it's no additional taxes is what they're saying. Actually, they're not going to add taxes. The current taxes that Chicagoans, Illinoisans are paying for Sox Park 2.0 are just going to continue. It's not at all citizens either. It's like a hotel tax. They're trying to get tourist dollars to help pay for it, but
Well,
that's
yeah,
the same deal that paid for the current Sox Park. So
yeah.
as I understand it,
I also think part of it too, like when you see the rendering, I mean, it's going to be a destination. I mean,
well,
it totally flips the script on what the White Sox have been um
yeah,
by their own accord, by Jerry Reinsdorf's own decision making.
yeah.
It's like a redo of the rendering that was originally done when they were redoing White Sox Stadium, where they're gonna sell all that land around it to put in, like, make the White Sox a destination so you
Yep.
could hang out afterwards and things like that. And he said, no, I want to keep all the money in the park. This time, the whole area is completely developed with like I think there might be a hotel, and then like restaurants and
Oh
bars,
yeah, for
and
sure.
it looks I mean, the renderings are always amazing. I mean, remember how good the current Rangers stadium looked in the renderings, and what
Yeah.
an actual what
Yeah,
reality is.
it was all
The reality
glass.
is it's not the renderings. Holy shit. I
Yeah,
mean,
Texas, the Ranger Stadium, that was all glass and iron, and it's
yeah.
basically looks like an aluminum tool shed from how it actually turned out. But
But
yeah, so we'll see with that. I think the location itself is the draw as much as anything. Like essentially, tell me if I'm wrong, but it's essentially 20 blocks straight north of the current ballpark because you're at
yeah,
35th.
yeah,
This is at like
you're still
12th,
16th, I think.
16th. Okay, so
Yeah,
15 blocks, 20 blocks.
yeah.
Just being that in the South Loop, which is one of the hottest areas of the city, a lot of new development. Very accessible to downtown. Not that Sox Park wasn't unaccessible, but it's walkable from downtown.
That's the key part. You're a tourist, you're in town,
Hmm.
you're staying downtown. It's actually more convenient. It would be more convenient to go to a White Sox game than a Cubs game.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. I agree. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
If that's what it turns out to be. So I think alone, like I said, the rendering's fucking beautiful. Like the way it's opened is, if you were sitting behind home plate, you would just have the city skyline as your backdrop.
Well, and
Uh,
that's something I've always complained about. It's hilarious that the current White Sox ballpark was built so it faced, at the time, the Robert Taylor home. So
Right,
now you
exactly.
see just a vast expanse of sky facing southeast.
Yeah.
Insane that it was not like turned to take advantage of the most beautiful skyline in North America. That always made me laugh.
Yeah.
You got to give the Cubs uh, benefit of the doubt because they built their stadium 100 years before that skyline developed the way it is now. So.
Whatever. Always cutting them some slack.
But I did hear a story, and this may or not be true, or maybe I misunderstood it, but I heard Dan Bernstein on 670 The Score mention the whole reason that was facing that direction is because, of course, it had to be built across the street from the original Comiskey Park. But Jerry wanted to keep the same address, the same street address. Like he wanted it at 35th and Shields. And apparently, if you turn the stadium to face downtown, it would change the address. So that was the whole decision was made based on that. So
Well, I
that
guess
just
he
seems,
doesn't care about that address anymore because he's
yeah,
ready to move to the South Loop.
yeah. I mean, it sounds absurd to me, but boy, I mean, a lot of the decisions that were made on that stadium were fairly absurd. So
I will say though, like it's very exciting, and I'm for it, but there's a bit of sadness too.
And you are the perfect person to talk about this, and
It,
and it's me and baseball fans, Chicago baseball fans, everyone that likes to see new things. This looks awesome on so many levels, but you have such a being a Sox fan, but you have an even deeper connection to the current ballpark.
yeah, I mean, my entire Italian side of the family grew up in Bridgeport.
You are Bridgeport.
Yeah,
You
I
are
am
it.
Bridgeport. I remember going to my uncle lived right on the other side of Armour Park, which is that park and tennis courts that's right by the
Just
stadium.
north, just
Yeah,
north.
so he was
Yeah.
just right there, and I can
Wow.
remember when we would go over there and hang out there, and then the Sox would be playing, and the fireworks would go off. I would just go out to the front porch and like watch it, and you could see the stadium from his front porch, and there's just there is I get it, and I think they should do it. I think it's only makes it's Reinstart's legacy.
Yeah.
It also, when it's time, when it does get sold, it's going to make selling the team even easier. But
Well, that's the biggest thing behind all
yeah,
this, I think, is selling the team eventually, because he has said that in his will that, or at least his family has said they will be selling the team once he dies. So he's leaving a legacy, leaving the city and the franchise in a better space, better mind space than where he got it.
yeah.
I think
But
that's the idea.
when you look at it from like tradition and a neighborhood and I mean, so many people who live in I'm not that they can't take a red line over to the new place, but
Right.
I mean, so many people just walk to work there. That's like their summer income, whether they're teachers or whether they just make some extra income. Moms who probably don't work all year go over there and work in the summer and make extra money for the family, and then all the different restaurants and things that probably get a lot of visitors after Sox games in, that's all going to be affected, and that's things that don't always get considered.
The question you'd be able to answer better than anyone, or certainly better than I, but I mean, you're wearing the t-shirt right there, South Side. I mean, you're only moving 20 blocks north, but
Yeah,
the
you're still South Side.
South Loop is still very different than Bridgeport. I mean,
Yeah,
you start to lose the South Side identity. I mean, you're kind of describing it right there, right?
I don't know if you do really, because if you walk around over there, I mean, it's not like it's all like super fat, like developed, like to obviously not, since there's 60 acres available, but
Well, it is.
but you're still, to me, you're still South Side. You're on the other side you're on the south side of Madison.
Yeah, I mean, technically for
Um,
sure, but it's going to have a totally different feel. Like you are in the middle of the city, which is awesome. I mean, that's
Yeah, you're not in a neighborhood anymore, which is a completely different feeling. I
and
mean,
that's
you are in
been
a neighborhood because there's a lot of, but not like a it's like it's
not the
hard to
neighborhood you've
describe.
been in for 120 years.
No,
I guess
exactly.
that's the
And that's
idea.
really truly a neighborhood.
Mhm.
But it's gonna be more like it's gonna be a lot like what when you look at the renderings, if you haven't looked at them, go look at them. It reminds me of exactly what the Ricketts did with Wrigley Field. There's actually the one rendering has a video screen, a
Oh, yeah.
giant screen that faces the plaza.
Oh,
So if
sure,
you're
yeah.
just walking, you can see the game.
Yeah.
So because like when I go to having lived in Wrigleyville when I first moved to the city and living down the block from the ballpark, that was a neighborhood, and it felt like a neighborhood, and
No, it's
it doesn't
Schaumburg.
feel as much as a neighborhood
It
anymore.
certainly is still, but yeah,
But
it feels much more like Schaumburg than it ever did before,
like
even 5 years ago.
I'm not kidding. Like still to this day, when we pull into that area, I just have to do a double take every time.
It's
Like it's
bizarre.
just so bizarre looking.
Yeah, I
Not
did that when I was, back in town this summer for the Guns N' Roses show at Wrigley. Like, I just was walking around, I was walking quickly or trying to get out of it as fast as I could 'cause it was 104 degrees that day, but,
yeah.
uh, yeah, it's stunning how different that is. So, yeah, I guess the other question for you could answer better than I or most. What is it gonna be harder to get to the ballpark than it is now? People are saying it's easier, but I would think there's so many Sox fans that come from the south suburbs that would just take the Dan Ryan right to the ballpark. Of course, it's still easily accessible by train. It's probably well, it can't be any easierly
Yeah, I
accessible
mean
than it is, but
yeah, you get off at Roosevelt and it's a 4 block walk.
yeah, I mean, I got
So
off at 35th and Shields, and it
yeah.
was a 1 block walk,
Yeah,
so
right. So it's yeah. Not
I'm a train goer, I'm a pedestrian, I'm not a driver. I'd probably think about a divvy bike. That would all be easier, just certainly walkable from the loop itself to the south loop. So those are positives, but so many people drive. I mean, you've got massive parking lots all around current Sox Park. There would be plenty of parking. It sounds like they'd be doing a below ground parking structure of some sort. There's got to be more than that.
well, there's so much parking in that vicinity anyway. You wouldn't even have to use White Sox parking if you didn't want to.
Is there that much? I mean,
Yeah,
I would
because
think there'd be a lot less than what you've got now, I guess
well,
is
you just
is the
gotta
idea.
again, you've gotta just walk a little bit
Well,
if you're not opposed to walking. I
I'm
mean,
not the
shit,
other
you're not even that far. Like if you use, I mean, I would actually, well, okay, it'd be probably like a 20-minute walk, but you could
yeah.
use the museum campus and still get over there.
Sure. Well, I guess the other part that where I was
And there's
going
a
with
metro train you can get to
well,
there.
where I was going with that question is, like, is this the end of tailgating before Sox games, which is
I
a
say
staple?
100%.
I think that's a huge loss. I mean, that's so different than what you could than, the Cubs experience. You go to bars and go to the ball game, that which is cool in and of itself, but if you want to tailgate before a baseball game, you go to the South Side. That's a whole different experience that is awesome in its own way. So I think that would be going away.
It's over.
Yeah. So there's lots of positives for sure. I think there's still lots of reasons to be a little bit dubious about if this is actually going to happen or how it actually turns out. But there are negatives to consider as well. That's why I think you're uniquely qualified to discuss these.
What I'll say to you is, I'm going to quote Star Trek: "The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few." So
Live long and prosper.
there you go. I mean,
Nerd alert.
like I said, I'm more uh, the tailgating, yay or nay. I don't do it that much.
We did. I think you and I did. It wasn't last year. It was 2 years ago. I
Oh well,
think
yeah, with Robin
briefly.
when we got our sponsorship and I got
Yeah, we were just
completely
drinking beers. We weren't
wasted. I
cooking
fell
food
asleep
or
at the
anything.
game. Remember?
Oh yeah, yeah, I remember that.
But then I woke up like in a thundering cheer as if I had been awake the whole time.
That's how you do it. But Yeah, so I mean, you and I have both enjoyed tailgating. You've done it way more than me. So if you're ready to let that go, I think anybody could. So
Yeah, I mean, I like to like if I go opening day, I think tailgating's fun because you meet up with people and stuff like that. But when we just go on a daily basis, like
yeah, you don't do
or like a
that.
regular like weekday, and plus the food. Here's always been the problem with like tailgating. It's like part of the reason you tailgate is you save money by like bringing your own food and grilling it. But I'd rather just spend the money and eat the food in the park because it's so fucking good. So
Good.
it's like shit. I mean, and again, this year, Smitty, let's be honest. You and I are sitting in fucking suites again because these tickets are going to be dirt fucking cheap.
Yeah.
It's another year of living large on the south side.
Well, yeah, I'll be looking forward to that for sure.
But
I don't know. It's just an interesting question. It's an interesting situation.
yeah, I mean, I think what I will say, I think they are going to lose, and I think this is what you were getting at. They are going to lose a little bit of their identity. What made them unique in Chicago?
They're going to lose
The
that, but they're getting
tailgating, the tailgating, um,
a little bit of the South
yeah, a
Side
little bit of the South Side neighborhood.
identity.
You know, you're gonna have to. You can't walk over to Rick Benny's and get that brilliant breaded steak sandwich anymore after the game. You're gonna have to.
Cork
That's
and
not gonna.
Carry.
Yeah, Cork and Carry at the park or any of those bars. But who knows? Maybe Cork and Carry at the park will be Cork and Carry at the park in the new spot. That the people who own that have a shit ton of money,
They'd be
so
smart to do that.
that wouldn't be a problem. But like, what is though a lot of those bars that ended up opening up like right outside the park, right after you get through Armour Park, you wonder what. I don't think the neighborhood can support that.
Oh yeah, I think that would be the end.
Yeah, so a lot of those places are going to end
Unless
up closing down.
unless something new happens with the current footprint of Sox Park.
Well, that and that's a whole nother question that seeing as that is state facility owned, what are they going to do with it?
Do the Bears move there?
Yeah, I mean there's still if the Bears move there, they
Thing's
got
so
to knock the
ridiculous.
whole fucking thing down.
Yeah.
I mean, like so.
Yeah,
Whatever.
that's one thing we didn't really talk about is the fear for the residents of Bridgeport. Like what happens to that whole neighborhood then? Where is that just a desolate place that people don't go other than think about how many people were going there for Sox games, what a staple that's been for again 120 plus years. Now it's would be radically different. So
Yeah, I that's what I was like. That's what I was alluding to. Like, it's gonna affect the infrastructure of that entire neighborhood if they do move. There are going to be restaurants. I mean, Rick and Benny's will not be one of them because they're like they've been nationally covered, so people like go out of the way to go there. But there are other restaurants there that I'm sure are going to just go out of business because some of their income, a portion of their income is because of White Sox games. So,
well, it certainly was a well-timed announcement considering how negative the news has been for 2-3 years. To have a positive note, how excited people got about potential new stadium in the South Loop. And of course, this wouldn't be until 2029. Is that
yeah, I
the
believe that's
earliest?
correct. Or 2029. So, I
Because your
mean,
lease runs through 2028 in your current
yeah,
ballpark. So yeah, we're talking way down the road. Well, 5 years isn't all that far, but yeah, I was just thinking 20 years ago, you and I were working in the loop, Jackson and Wells. We went to plenty of Sox games. We would just head right down, the red line or jump in your car and drive down. How cool to be working in the loop, just walking to a fucking game in the South Loop right there. But
I know.
I don't know how many people actually work in the loop anymore. I mean, the whole world has shifted since then. So maybe it's not as
That
big of a
building's still running. It's open. There's people in it. Our old building.
Oh,
So,
yeah, I go by it all the time. It's right by Union Station, so I check
yeah.
every time I come into the city, I'm going by it, but
But like I was saying to you a couple weekends ago, like I could basically walk. I mean, it'd be a little bit of a walk, but I could walk there all the way
From
from
you,
the
yeah,
office.
in Wicker Park. Oh, your
Yeah,
office. Yeah, I forget. Are you on Michigan?
I'm on Clark Clark in Illinois.
Well, you're
So
straight south right
yeah.
there.
So
Well, I think it's going to be fun to talk about for the next 5 years.
yeah, I'm sure there'll be. It's all like cupcakes and rainbows right now,
Yeah,
but
there's
I'm
going to be
sure there'll be plenty of drama involved.
a lot of twists and turns as we get into how this is financed, to get into the nitty-gritty details of how that all works. I do want to remind you, I had this written down for the current Sox Park deal. What a sweetheart deal that was, and how infuriating it is to anyone that's not a Sox fan, probably. But for the first 10 years, the White Sox didn't have to pay rent if the
Yeah, I
attendance was
mean,
below 1.2 million.
yeah, that makes sense, though. You
So they
wouldn't
paid
put a good
nothing
team
for
on
that
the
stadium.
field.
So they were actually incentivized to not have a good team, like
Yeah,
or not be interesting to the fans.
I was annoyed by that when that news came out, um, because I did think that he continued to put mediocre product on the field.
Well, it explains a lot.
I mean, they let's see, was 10-year 91, yeah, to two. So that's 91 to 2001. But they did have a really good team in 94, but the strike happened. So
Well, then, well, yeah, that changed a lot of things, I'm sure. But you had a good team in 2001.
yeah, but that was on the cusp of it. That was the last. So I guess he
Mm.
didn't. I guess he didn't totally tank. Was 97 was what, the white flag?
You tell me,
I can't
Southside
remember
boy.
now. Yeah, Southside boy, I can't remember. I think 97 was the white flag.
You do currently still just pay 1.5 million in annual rent for the stadium. So,
He's a negotiator.
well, that makes me wonder, like, what this new deal is going to look like. I mean, maybe he doesn't care because he will be selling it. He's only trying to prop up the value and increase his legacy. But
But don't you think the sale of the team would hold even more value if he actually owned the ballpark?
yeah, and that's certainly, yeah, it would absolutely, yeah, and
And
that's where you see the value of the Cubs has skyrocketed. It was going to anyway, but it doubled just because it's a franchise and they own the ballpark
that's why
outright.
I think I feel that the comment of not funded by tax dollars is the idea that he's actually going to he has the money to do it, that they're
Does
actually
he
going to
though?
he does. Yeah.
Okay,
They're going to own the stadium. That's what I think.
that's a
That
lot.
and that would be
This
his
is
and that would be his legacy. If he
multiple
actually owned it.
billions of dollars we're talking about now with the land and the building and the entertainment district that would be adjacent
But you
on the.
figure he owns the stadium, and obviously then I'm sure you could work out something where like maybe he owns the stadium, but it's not like the Ricketts who bought everything up around him and then someone else
Yeah,
manages the commercial side of it. So whatever. I don't want to get into that. That
yeah,
this
that's
podcast.
we've got
Let's
5 years to talk about that.
and let's
We've
talk about baseball. Let's keep talking about baseball.
we've taken a lot of time to talk about Sox Park 3.0, but you've got
Yeah.
other positive news to talk about there on the south side.
Yeah, we got finally last week, Smitty posed a question. Have you guys announced a play, or not last week, a few weeks ago when we were on? Have you announced the play-by-play guy? And I said, no, I think Steve Stone's going at it alone. But
I almost
yeah,
forgot about it. You needed a new voice of the White Sox, as we hadn't heard anything about it for quite some
but
time.
John, am I going to pronounce this right? Schriffen,
I can't help you,
Schriffen,
man. I have no idea.
Schriffen, John Schriffen is the new voice of the White Sox.
Did you know who he was before this announcement?
When I heard him talk, he sounded familiar, but it's hard to tell because he does have one of those voices that
That's exactly
is
what I was going to say. John Q. broadcaster. He sounds like
yeah.
every new broadcaster over the last 10 years. They all
He
kind of have the same voice.
yeah, he has an interesting background. You know, he actually started off as just like a hardcore news person.
Mhm. He was with Good Morning.
Working
He was a Good Morning America correspondent.
yeah, working in New York and that. And then for the last 4 years he's worked for ESPN and he's called he's done play-by-play on like college basketball and things like
Okay,
that.
yeah.
The one of the more interesting storylines from it that I thought, and I just never gave this much thought. He's only the second. He's biracial, so he's half African American. He's only the second African American play-by-play broadcaster in the
That's
history of MLB baseball.
that's crazy.
And the only
That's
other guy
awesome, but
is
it's crazy that's the second.
yeah, the only other guy is currently in Seattle, David Sims. So it's
Okay.
only recently that that's even occurred. So
It's
kind
always
of
been an old boys club.
uh,
Finally, they're breaking through. And that's one thing we rip on Jerry all the time, but
yeah.
he is all about diversity in so many levels, and this is just another example. So that's super cool that
Yeah.
he's trying to help break down that barrier.
There was some interesting so I think that a little more light has been shed on the Benetti situation because
Do tell.
well, so when I was reading this article, the new guy, whatever, John, we'll call him, we'll just say
John.
John mentioned that part of him taking the job is that he was going to make the White Sox his priority and not and broadcast, basically be in the broadcast booth for all the White Sox games and then work at ESPN in the off season.
Yeah, and we talked about that when Benetti was, he's a national presence. He does college football, college basketball, all sorts of stuff, and
he was gone a
asking
lot.
for more and more time off to pursue those interests. So I could see why that would be appealing to the White Sox, where they don't have to deal with that anymore.
Yeah, well, they said they nixed anyone who needed to be on the move a lot during the baseball season. So
that's their prerogative. I understand.
Yeah.
I mean, we could rip on them if you want, but I think that's legit. I mean, it wasn't great for Benetti's position, but he's in such a unique spot, being a day-to-day baseball broadcaster, but having so many other jobs as well. Not everyone has those opportunities that he has, so it just eventually wasn't a good fit. So this sounds like a much better fit.
Yeah, I do have a concern though. When I was watching his little video, he said he's a foodie and he likes to eat food and he likes to try ballpark food. And I mean, I get worried that's going to get him off the air in probably about 3 years, because I know Benetti eating on the air was not Reinsdorf did not like Benetti eating the food on the air. So
he didn't like that, and he didn't think Jason was funny. So hopefully this guy is fucking funny, like a clown.
Either he's fucking funny or just plays it straight.
He seemed a little bit like we talked about, little milquetoast, little John Q generic broadcaster. He has no ties to Chicago that I could find. Isn't he from New York?
Yeah, he did. There's no Chicago ties. I did read that he went to have dinner with Steve Stone, and it was supposed to be like a hour-long dinner, and they were together for over 3 hours. And I think that was part of like what they hit it off apparently. And then he asked Stoney if, like, even if I don't get the job, can we still keep in touch? And he gave him his information, and
that's cool.
I think that was like the seal the deal. He also had to have dinner with Jerry, so I'm sure that was a blast.
I think mentioning Stone is the key to all of this. I think it doesn't matter who your play-by-play guy is, because Stone is so fucking good. It's almost like if anybody can just get out, set him up, ask the right questions, and have Stone roll, that's going to be a great broadcast no matter who's doing play-by-play. So I think certainly somebody that doesn't necessarily have Chicago ties, didn't grow up a White Sox fan, he's going to play a deferential role to Stone, just doing the basics and setting him up for to show his brilliance. It could be a perfect combo.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, let's see how it goes. He seems like a cool dude, and one thing he did say that I thought was really awesome is because he has that journalistic news background, that he was going to really get to know the players and ask them questions and be down at the batting cage and bring that information to the people on the air.
That's
So they
interesting.
can get to know the players better. And I'm like, dude, if you do that, I mean, that's gonna take the broadcast in an even cooler direction.
Yeah,
than
that's a
where we've been.
new and interesting direction I hadn't
Yeah.
considered. But
We'll see if, I'm sure he'll have the access. We'll see if that's how it goes. But I think it'll be fine. Like you said, with Stones, with it not being like a whole turnover, I think we'll be okay.
Oh my God, yeah. If you lost Stone at the same time, it's like,
Yeah.
what are we doing? Why would we even tune in?
But the other one of the other things I wanted to talk about real quick was big news. Sox Fest 2025. It's coming back. The Sox did just have last week a season holders event at the Field Museum. So if you were a full season ticket holder, you were able to attend this event. I did see pictures on Twitter.
It's rather elitist, not to let the bleacher fans in or anybody else. Like, you have to be a season ticket holder.
Looked pretty underwhelming, the event.
Yeah, do they have players there?
Yeah, players were there. Grafal was there. Stoney was there.
They use that as a platform to announce that Sox Fest is coming back. It's been a 4-year hiatus now?
Yeah, but I'm calling this diversion.
No, it's more than that. They canceled it in 2020. They must have. So it's been
COVID.
It's been 5 years.
It's been 5 years. I'm calling this I'm calling it Diversion Sox Fest, though. It's Diversion Fest because conveniently the theme and the focus of the event is celebrating the 20th anniversary of the 05 championship.
Okay.
So all the 05 players are going to be there, and it's going to be all this pomp and circumstance. So
good move.
Let's bring Sox Fest back, but we don't have to address any of the current issues because we're going to be celebrating a championship from 20 years ago.
That is fucking brilliant.
It is brilliant.
That is brilliant.
Brooks Boyer does it again.
Yeah, you're onto him. I think you're totally onto him. That's perfect.
Yeah, so we'll have to wait another 5 years for Sox Fest when it's the 25th anniversary.
They do it every 5 years.
Every 5 years.
It's almost like the Olympics.
Yes. So
all right.
We'll see how it goes. I've never gone to a Sox Fest. I'm a huge Sox fan. I've never gone to a Sox Fest because
oh really? I assumed you had been.
I've had zero interest in like standing in line to get autographs, being in like a large group of people who are generally miserable. Like it just sounds super unappealing to me.
Yeah.
Like I don't like going to the auto show either. It just sounds like a great way to catch an illness.
Well, that's certainly what the Sox thought, or at least they said they thought for 5 years. But
so
they're so worried this year they couldn't do it for anyone else besides the season ticket holders. But to be honest, I've never been to a Cubs Fest. I was never interested when I was living there. I could have easily attended, but I chose not to. Sucks going anywhere in the winter.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other part. It's I know you have to have it in January. I mean, and it gets you hyped up before like spring training starting and pitchers and catchers are reporting, but it's like, no, I'm good. I'm just good. I'm good.
I've never been to a Tigers Fest. I live 90 miles from Detroit, so it was never all that convenient anyway. But
yeah,
I do have to say I have been to 2 different fests of teams. I went to the A's Fest in Oakland, held at the Coliseum itself. I actually rode my bike there from Emeryville, California to whatever neighborhood that is in Oakland. That was a harrowing ride, and I have actually attended a Giants Fest that same winter. I took the BART over from the East Bay right to back. It was certainly not Oracle Park then. I forget what it was, AT&T or something like that. They had it was kind of like a big loading dock area right next to the stadium on the other side of McCovey Cove where they had their festival. So I checked that out because I was living there for 11 months and didn't hardly know anybody. So I was finding ways to kill time, and going to those fests was nice. It's actually beautiful out, of course, because it's the Bay Area, California. So it's a very, very different feeling than going to a festival here in the Midwest. But yeah, kind of ironic. I've never been to a Cubs or Tigers Fest, but I have been to a Giants and A's Festival.
Interesting. especially the Giants Fest. But
Yeah, it was cool.
Before we get into the most important debate we will ever have in the history of this podcast, I do have to throw some shade towards Yoan Moncada.
Oh, okay.
And here's why I'm throwing shade. Conveniently, well, I mean, we are in his contract year, right? He's gonna get
Final
paid
year of his extended deal by Rick Hahn. I think he's being paid
21 or
25. I think
or
it's 24,
24.
25.
Yeah, maybe. It's a lot of money for someone who's not worth that amount of money based on his performance. But I did find it interesting that he had this quote the other day that, and I'm going to read the quote and then we're going to make fun of it. I'm motivated. I think God has saved something special for me. Really? You're fucking motivated in your contract?
Now you're motivated.
Yeah, now you're motivated. This is
Shocking.
the reason that Smitty has mocked the idea of giving unproven players long-term contracts, which we'll see what his take is on it in a little bit.
This might come up a little bit later.
Because there's no motivation to perform if right out of the gates you're signed to these long-term deals. And granted, Moncada was the #1 ranked prospect in all of baseball.
He was at the time.
But he has never performed anywhere near. I mean, it's questionable if he's performed within I guess he has performed within a top 100 prospect, but it's only pockets of time and he's been unable to remain healthy. But I bet you, Smitty, that he will be on the fucking field in the final year of his contract, which could be really good for the White Sox. 150 plus fucking games this year.
I picked him infamously to be the AL MVP last season based on
I think you should do it this year.
Well, that's the thing. I was a year early, but I got all glassy-eyed watching him being a motivated player in the World Baseball Classic, dominating.
Yeah.
I assumed that was going to continue throughout the 2023 season, and clearly it did not, amongst other issues that your Sox had. But a motivated Yoan Moncada could be a deadly Yoan Moncada. So I think, yeah, maybe I will look into when we get to our preseason predictions. Maybe I will revisit the Yoan Moncada AL MVP.
I mean, usually if we guess things the same way enough, we might get it right. Although I'm off the Padres. I'm off the Padres for the World Series.
Yeah, how could I got to stop too? Yeah,
we're off it.
It did work out well. My my jinx of the White Sox picking them to make the World Series.
Well, you
win the division and make the World Series. And that
I don't think they need any aid in not making the World Series this year. So I think you can just get off of that.
Spoiler alert: I will not be picking them to go to the World Series this year. Sorry, but we're a few episodes ahead. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here.
I mean, he's literally reporting too. I just got to throw this in there. He's literally reporting with the pitchers and catchers. He's reporting at the same time.
That is motivation, right there. Yeah. That's what motivation looks like, right there. Show up early. I mean, it's cool that he's saying that. It's unbelievably transparent why he's saying that. I mean,
yeah, I think it's shitty.
I don't think maybe there's a language barrier or something that he realizes like how easily it is to see through what he's been doing in the previous years, not being motivated, but I don't know. Good luck to him. Good luck to your White Sox.
All right. Are you ready for this?
Well, speaking of World Series, I think I saw maybe 2 weeks ago, somebody posed the question on Twitter. Who would win? What's the better team between the 2005 White Sox and the 2016 Chicago Cubs? And it's such an obvious question. I can't believe you and I have never discussed this directly in our personal time hanging out, or certainly on this blog podcast. We've had 14 years.
I mean, this is what it's
about. Well,
by the way, this is what it's come to now. Like we have to discuss this because there's nothing else worth truly like talking about with these teams. I mean,
yeah, there's not
a whole lot of positive stuff of the team themselves. There's maybe positive
moment.
things happening outside of it, but
Yeah.
the actual teams that are being assembled at the moment, it's not
Yeah, the Cubs
looking
have
great.
had another dormant off season, which we'll get into after this. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of other things to talk about. But this subject came up, and I couldn't believe we hadn't discussed it. I think it'd be very fun for you and I to actually. We don't just disagree on much these days, so it'd be good for us to have a healthy debate. Which team would actually win a World Series? The 2005 White Sox or the 2016 Cubs? And we put no stipulations in how these arguments need to be formed. I had my ideas. We were partying last weekend, as we mentioned, or a couple weekends ago in the Chicago suburbs. You said you had a stack of statistics to back up your argument. I have a few here that I'd like to discuss, but I'll give you the floor if you want to start this debate. Where
All right.
where do you land?
I'm shocking development. I'm going to go the Sox beat the Cubs.
What?
I
I
know.
can't believe you would say that.
And here's the reason why.
Oh, right.
White Sox World Series, OPS 847. Cubs World Series, OPS 720. Sox average 5 runs a game. The Cubs average 3.85 runs a game. The Sox starting pitching in the World Series was a 2.63 ERA. The Cubs was a 3.43 ERA. The Sox whip was a 1.112, and the Cubs pitching was a 1.24 whip. Dunzo.
Wow. So your argument is based on a 7-game sample size. That's what
Only
you're gonna say.
only 4 for the White Sox, but I can walk through
11 games is what you're basing this on.
I can walk you through the entire series.
No, I get I will
Of the
cede
series
you
as to why the Sox would still beat the Cubs, because you can take the regular season records, but they don't mean anything once you get to the playoffs. They're
they also don't mean anything when they are 11 years apart. So
yeah, but it doesn't mean anything when you get to the playoffs, like how well you performed in the regular season. It's how well you perform in the playoffs. And the White Sox dominated the playoffs. The Cubs struggled through it a little bit. And
we both won 11 games. We can agree upon that.
Well,
somehow we both came to 11. So I'm gonna just completely blow your argument out of the water with the sample size argument, because you're talking about a total of 11 games, as you corrected me. That is a hot streak. You guys enjoyed the hottest streak of hot streaks at the absolute perfect time. Now I'm not denigrating your achievement. You are the World Series champions forever. I don't want to say you are not worthy. The 2005 White Sox are the best postseason team, I think, maybe ever. That is a hot streak, though, and that is the definition of a small sample size. So I don't want to give my argument away, but I wanted to do a blind taste test for you, so to speak, the Pepsi challenge, as we used to call it when we were kids. I don't know if you recall that, or anyone listening to this podcast, what the Pepsi challenge was, but they posed a series of commercials where they just had people drink 2 different sodas. They had no idea the cans were covered up. You had no idea what you were drinking. They just absolutely asked people to choose if they like Coke or Pepsi. They'd just by a blind taste test. And by overwhelming numbers, believe it or not, Pepsi won. Are you a Pepsi fan or a Coke
no, I
fan?
fucking think Pepsi sucks.
I think Pepsi is mediocre. I don't really drink regular soda. I drink Coke Zero is all I drink, actually.
Pepsi's like flat. It tastes flat to me. It always has.
Yeah, I love Coke Zero. That's basically all I drink. I've had Pepsi's version. What are they, Pepsi One, or I don't know what
Pepsi's, there's Pepsi Zero now or
Maybe
something.
Zero.
Everything's a zero now. Everything's a zero.
Mediocre, but so I would have failed that challenge at the time, or whatever was going on in the 80s when they were doing this. Somehow Pepsi tasted better than Coke, but maybe this will throw you off, because I'm going to give you the blind taste test between Team A and Team B.
And what is the sample size of this?
This would be 162 ball games.
But that does not determine the playoffs. It's insignificant.
That's not insignificant.
Yes, it is insignificant, because the best
You're not even going to let me do my argument. You're already butting in.
I'm just telling you.
Jesus.
Go ahead, give it. I know the Cubs have the Cubs finished 1-2. They finished 1 in pitching and 3 in hitting that year. And the Sox finished 10th in hitting and 4th in pitching.
I'll give you the actual.
I know the Cubs are a better regular season team, but that doesn't make them a better postseason team.
That doesn't make them a worse postseason team. I mean, it just doesn't. So I'll just give you the numbers here. Then I won't even make you do the blind taste test, as this has clearly irritated you. The Cubs runs 808, Sox 741. That's a 60. That's a 67 run differential, which is another thing you don't like. The team OPS, Cubs were 772, Sox 747.
Yep, got that right here in front of me.
Team ERA, Cubs were 315, Sox 361. Here's back to the run differential. Cubs were a whopping 252 plus run differential. Sox a respectable 96. And of course, wins. The White Sox had 99 and the Cubs had 103. That's negligible, but that's probably my weakest argument. But you and I are just going to disagree about hot streaks versus large sample size, because I think it's clear that the White Sox are an inferior team to the 2016 Chicago Cubs
in the regular season, but not in the postseason, because the White Sox. Do you realize in the ALDS against the how many innings did a White Sox starting pitcher pitch in the ALCS?
Will that happen every time they play in the postseason? Clearly not.
How many innings did a reliever?
You take a larger sample size to figure out what would translate in a future aspect.
No, you don't.
I just did.
No, you take when the competition is the toughest.
You take the smallest sample size possible. That proves nothing.
It proves out every year when a wild card team wins the fucking World Series.
I'm saying your hot streak is not guaranteed to happen every time you play in the postseason.
I'm guaranteed, but how can you say it's not going to happen with the 2005 team?
How can you say it will?
Because I saw it happen. Because I saw it.
You saw it happen one time in an
with the 2005 team. Yes,
and I think it would not be enough to overcome all the stats I just gave you of the Chicago Cubs. So
but the Cubs did not produce those. The Cubs did not produce those stats at all in the playoffs.
They did. They did enough to win the goddamn World Series. What are you talking about?
Okay,
You're acting like they were a shit team in the World Series throughout the playoffs. They were not. They won the exact same number of games you did.
Well, everyone would. Yeah, but how many games did they play to get there? We only played 11 games.
Well, we played 5 more than you did. Congratulations.
Yeah. You had a 7-game World Series. We had a 4.
So you're 5 games better in a short sample size hot streak.
We are in the.
I proved it for 6 months. 6 months of every stat possible. I would give it to you if any of those stats.
We're in the top 3 of all time most dominant.
Yes, I'm giving you that.
Performances.
You're arguing the same point that I've already ceded. But it's meaningless to this debate.
No, it's not meaningless. I'm saying the same team in the regular season shows up in the postseason, and that has been proven time and time again to be insignificant.
And I'm saying, yes, you were better in the postseason than you were in the regular season, but that wouldn't be enough to overcome how good the Chicago Cubs were in 2016.
No, not true. Statistically, it's proven
I think we could stop
from the playoff numbers that is not a fact.
That actually, you're wrong. You're just refuting something that it's impossible to refute. So I think we could just. I knew this was going to happen, where we were going to end up, but I think you made your point. I made my point. We'll let the listeners decide. Maybe we should put up a poll. Can we get a poll on? Maybe can I put a poll on a YouTube segment? I don't think I can.
I'm not positive on the YouTube.
Well, I can when I post it on Twitter, so I'll post it there. Like who would win this, or who won our argument at least? Because people will have their biases before they even see this post. But I don't know. I don't think there's anything else you and I could say, because I think we're already going in a circle. But
I agree. Let's move on.
It's about time, as we haven't had any kind of debates. We kind of just both have been piling on the White Sox for the last couple of years.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna live in some fucking dream world that
I've been
it's not
piling
good shit over there. So.
I've been piling on the Cubs for years. I think you might remember.
Well, sort of.
My God.
You did not have the reality that they were not gonna make the playoffs last year, as I did, but
I picked them to win 77 games last year.
no,
What do you
but
mean?
when we were down the stretch, you had drank the Kool-Aid by that point.
Well, and they came one game short. So I mean, congratulations to you. You win that. So yeah,
I do, because one game short still means you're not in the fucking playoffs.
But
so.
to characterize me as Pollyannish because I came one game short, that's stupid. So congratulations.
Okay. Well, thanks for calling me stupid. Let's move on.
I said that's stupid. Your argument. I mean, you're not stupid.
I'm gonna cry.
I wouldn't do a podcast with you if I thought you were stupid. Come on now.
I'm joking. All right, let's move on to your Cubby Blues.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the Cubs are still hibernating, but they did sign Hector Neris, 35-year-old reliever from the Houston Astros. Time to do a 1-year, $9 million deal. That's fine. He's a third-tier bullpen guy. Great. If that was the 7th move they had made to address the bullpen or other issues they had with the squad, great. But he's not. He's the first move they made to address the bullpen that was mostly responsible for the collapse that happened in September that you and I were just referencing.
And Cody Bellinger.
Well, yeah, that's part of it too. But the bullpen was out of gas by the end of the season, and they have done this one move to address it at this point. Neris he puts up 70 innings every year, which is awesome. I think he's going to be a good addition if Father Time hasn't caught up with him. As I mentioned, he's 35 years old. We'll see if he can still be as productive as he has been throughout his career.
You got to have speculation on that. Like, I've seen the White Sox do this move, and it's backfired more than a few times for them.
I don't mind if it backfires, because it's a 1-year deal, $9 million. Who gives a fuck about Ricketts' $9 million? But if this is all they're going to do with the bullpen, that's what I'm nervous about. They need to make multiple moves. They should have been making larger moves before this point to address that issue. As more and more free agents tick off the board, the one I mentioned in our last show, Josh Hader, signed with the aforementioned Houston Astros. A monstrous deal that I did not see coming. I don't know. Did you see 5 years, $95 million?
No, I think they're not gonna like the end of that contract.
I don't think they are either, but I wouldn't mind even
but if
the Cubs had done that.
Yeah,
I would say now you're acting like big boys. They're just gonna they're gonna fucking deal with it at those last 2 years, potentially even more. They could be hating it. They can absorb it. We've talked about this over and over again. All it is money, and especially with a reliever, even if he's not producing, it sucks to have him on your roster, but you just absorb it. I think his production will be tremendous over the next several years. He's just turned 30, but he's going to be benefiting the Houston Astros, one of the teams that need it the least. That was just a shocking deal. But when you see terms like that, that is something the Cubs could have done. They simply chose not to because they refuse to act like big boys. They are a big market team acting like a small market team. This has been well documented. Others that have signed that have been linked to the Cubs, Rhys Hoskins signed with division rivals Milwaukee Brewers.
When that fucking happened, I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like it looked. The stories were all trending that like the Cubs were on it. The Cubs were on it. The Cubs were on it, and it's like, what?
Yeah,
and like if he had signed with like someone out of the division or something, I would have been like, whatever. But the fact that he signed with the Brewers means that someone dropped the ball somewhere from the Cubs standpoint.
It's a 2-year, $34 million deal.
It's not even that bad.
The irony is that's exactly twice what they gave to Cody Bellinger last year. 1 year, $17 million.
Yeah.
So the Brewers can somehow step up and do this, but the Cubs can't figure it out. I'll get back to Bellinger because there is reasoning behind that. We've talked about it a little bit before.
Yeah, no, the Bellinger deal was solid.
I'll just talk about Bellinger now. I mean, yeah, that deal was great. we always say there are no bad 1-year deals. What he's potentially looking for now is 7 or 8 years, $200+ million.
It would be dumb if that's where they're going to put their money.
And that's why I've been totally against signing him for that kind of deal from the beginning. I mentioned that before the season even ended last year. So that's a non-starter. But what in the Cubs' defense and Jed Hoyer's defense is I've been raking him over the coals for the last several years, and even more this year with his inactivity. And we talked about this last show. He doesn't want to bid against himself. And I don't blame him. There's no reason to do that, as it has now been reported by Bob Nightingale, of all people, but it's been reported that there have been no offers across all of Major League Baseball for the services of Cody Bellinger to this point. So why would the Cubs be in any rush to go offer him some crazy deal if they don't want to? Why not wait until his price comes down for whatever Scott Boras is asking right now? It has to come down at some point, especially if no one is biting. I don't blame Jed Hoyer for sitting on his hands this long, specifically with Cody Bellinger. I blame him for sitting on his hands, not signing others. Certainly the bullpen is something he could have been addressing all along, not waiting till this week to do it. Bellinger there's been reports that Bellinger wants to be a Cub. His family's, they love being in Chicago. They want to return. It makes sense. He certainly had a renaissance here in Chicago. I could see them doing it again. That you and I have talked about the myriad reasons why that might not be a great idea. Why his overall numbers might be a bit of a mirage from 2023 because of this precipitous drop in September where he was blown away by velocity. And his track record is so sporadic, going from an MVP candidate, an MVP, to one of the worst hitters in baseball over his time with the Dodgers. So I'd be fine again with a short-term, maybe even high money deal, because again, who gives a fuck? It's Ricketts billions to spend. Even if they give him a bunch of money and he doesn't perform, they can deal with it if it's a short-term contract and doesn't bottle things up. So
right.
The more time passes, the less I get upset about Hoyer not pulling the trigger on a Bellinger deal. I didn't want him to begin with, but this actually helps the situation, because I think that those years come down. If not, maybe the average annual value doesn't necessarily come down, but the years come down. That works in the Cubs and in my argument's favor. There are still other options. You don't have to hang everything on Cody Bellinger, but they are going away, like we said, with Rhys Hoskins. Cubs certainly need a corner infielder still. Matt Chapman's still out there. We'll see what's going on. I don't have. Nobody really knows what's happening with any of these things. They're all rumors, but I don't know that if he has an interest in the Cubs, what that might cost. I think that would be a pretty hefty price tag. I'm not sure. Again, you'd have to see the number of years. I don't like signing anyone to long year deals, but Chapman is a plausible alternative to Bellinger. But it sounds like the industry is starting to believe Bellinger is coming to the Cubs one way or the other. And I guess the longer this plays out, it works in the Cubs' advantage. And maybe if that happens and we see the terms of the deal, I will have to capitulate and give Jed Hoyer some kudos for the way he negotiated this. But the way he's done the rest of this and the previous offseason is just driving me and most Cubs fans absolutely crazy. One thing I did want to mention, there was a trade rumor, and that's something that the Cubs could definitely be a part of, since they seem to refuse to be part of the free agency market. They have a deep farm system, as evidenced by the MLB pipeline top 100 rankings that I'll get into in a bit. But so it would make sense if they want to address their needs through trades. And one trade that was brought up was for Guardians closer Emmanuel Clase, or I've heard pronounced Classy. Pretty sure it's Clase, but
he is not classy.
But I would love that. He's a fighter. I think he throws 103.
Yeah. He gets it up there.
He's nasty. That would be interesting. Again, I have no idea what trade terms would be, but it does make some sense. As Carter Hawkins was part of the Guardians organization before he became the Cubs general manager. There's got to be, there's certainly relationships there where it would facilitate a trade a little bit easier than maybe some other organizations. So maybe that's where that speculation came from. I'm not sure how much fire is behind that smoke, but that would be a really interesting move that would potentially change my view of the Cubs bullpen situation going into 2024, as he would immediately become your closer, and that moves everyone back an inning, thus strengthening every level of your bullpen. So there'd still be other moves that would need to be made, but that's one area that Jed could surprise us with in the short time remaining before this season starts. So I did mention MLB Pipeline's top 100. I don't know if you saw this, but the Cubs had 7 members of the top 100, which is, I don't think it's unprecedented, but it is certainly the most of any franchise at this point.
It's the most of any list of the top 100 too. Other
Okay.
publications like ESPN just put theirs out. I think the Cubs had 3 or 4. So
It's that
yeah,
different. I'm
yeah.
surprised. Okay. Well, I'm citing Pipeline, but I'm mocking myself if you let me get to this, because I mocked you guys, your White Sox. I believe it was 2018 where you're the number 1 ranked
Yeah, we had like
farm
7.
system.
Yeah, I think it was 7 or 8 on that one too. Look at
Yeah.
where it got us.
I called you the farm system champions.
You did all over Twitter over and over again,
I made
social
all
media,
oh, 'cause
on the air, whatever we were doing, it was everywhere.
I have called my Detroit Tigers the farm system champions, I believe, of 2021, when they had
Yes. Yeah.
such prospects as Mize and Skubal and Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson coming through. So I mocked my own team at the same time, and I am now once again mocking my Chicago Cubs for being the 2024 farm system champions. It's a fun thing. Yeah, as you said, prospect rankings are meaningless, essentially.
Yeah.
They're also very, very different based on publication.
That's what I'm finding so strange though, because it seems like it's like who's right? We don't fucking know till they get to the till they get to the show, right?
Yeah.
So like I don't I think the Cubs, I mean, I've been reading for the last couple of years how they've been building a great farm system. So to hear that they have 7 guys is not surprising to me. But then you go and read another list and I'm like, well, I don't get it.
I
Like,
am, but that's top 100. I am seeing consensus throughout that their system is, amongst the top
yeah,
10 at
for
least.
sure, for sure.
Their system is deep. We're talking about that would be talking about depth versus talking about the top of it, which is
Yeah.
that's one thing that was happening with the 2018 White Sox farm system. It was so top heavy, it didn't have the depth, and that's come out to play. So we'll see if the Cubs actually do have that depth. But that just comes back to the conversation about trades, that might be the Cubs' strategy to. I mean, they still need to add at least one more starter. I would say a number 2 starter, preferably, which I don't know how many of those become available on the market.
There's a guy
Uh,
named Dylan Cease available.
well, that's something we might actually have to talk about. I think maybe that's next episode, because I think the White Sox would be incredibly foolish not to trade him before spring training starts, because if he gets hurt right now or before the season or during the season, they're holding on to that. I think that's a huge missed opportunity for a team that, I mean, we're not trying to be mean here. They're not they shouldn't be competitive next year. Why would you have an asset like that is expiring after next season on the roster when you could capitalize right now? You could lose all of that if he injures himself. So I think Dylan Cease is going to become more and more of a conversation, certainly amongst Chicago baseball. But yeah, I mean, a Cubs Sox trade is so fraught with, history and vitriol and everything else. It's difficult to imagine, but it's not impossible. That seems like a matchup right there. Again, we could debate again how that trade, the most famous recent trade, turned out. Didn't really work out for either of us when it comes down to it. But
Right, true.
So that'll be fascinating. I think we can get more into that later. But speaking of farm systems, as I drone on and on and on, the way we set this up, I think we could have changed this a little bit, but it does dovetail nicely with recent Detroit Tigers news that I want to get into, as the Tigers have but 3 of the top 100 according to MLB Pipeline. I'm sorry, they have 4 in the top 100, but 3 are in the top 25, which is pretty substantial. With Max Clark, first round draft pick last year, and Jackson Jobe, one of the last first round draft picks of the Al Avila era. But number 22 overall in MLB Pipeline is Colt Keith, which you and I have not discussed a whole lot. I refrained from doing so last year, even though he was tearing up the minor leagues with 27 home runs. Didn't seem quite relevant until he became incredibly relevant this past week, where out of the blue, the Tigers made their first signing of a player who has never set foot on a major league ballpark field to an extended deal. When it was first reported, I almost spit out my beer with fury, because when I first heard it, it was it was a 9-year, $82 million deal. And immediately that made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. And it's something you mentioned before that I have been railing against. I've raked Rick Hahn over the coals for doing for years, with so many of your prospects in the late 20-teens. That specifically Yoan Moncada is the worst example of, and that we've seen how that has not worked out well. To see the Tigers doing something very similar to that was driving me crazy until the real details came out, where there's only 6 years of that guaranteed. The money is $28 million. It is nothing like a 9-year, $82 million deal. It is a 6-year, $28 million deal is the way you look at it. That's still plenty of money for Colt Keith. Not nearly the type of crippling deal that could derail a franchise that I have no interest in. That's less than just over $4 million a year. Even the Tigers, who do not have the same kind of coffers as the Chicago Cubs do, still have plenty of money. That's not going to be an issue. If Colt Keith is a total bust, which would be surprising, it's certainly not impossible. Even if he was a total bust, that's money that the Tigers could easily absorb. That's where I get to with these long-term deals. I'm not interested in crippling deals that my teams have to deal with. Cubs, Tigers were crippled by the Miguel Cabrera deal. That is so different, though, with his extension, in that he was essentially almost Hank Aaron with his career numbers. I mean, for the Tigers, at least on a monetary basis, they made that money back in ticket sales and everything else, because everyone was trying to pursue his 3,000th hit, his 500th home run. I was at those games. But giving it to a player that has never set foot on a major league field it's unprecedented for the Tigers. I'm dubious about. I think he's gonna be a good player. I think giving him the money ahead of time I don't know. I'm not gonna kill him. I'm not gonna kill Scott Harris for doing it. I think to degrees, it's just not nearly the type of deal that Yoan Moncada got. You and I tried to make the comp earlier in the show. I don't see a comparison, just because we're not, like, what Yoan Moncada is going to make this year is almost exactly what Colt Keith is going to make by the end of his 6 years guaranteed. That's where I draw the distinction.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I only saw the 82 million number. I was like, whoa.
I wouldn't blame you if that was the deal. I'd be flipping out right now.
Yeah.
So
And the fact that they're all club options, not like a player option.
Yeah, it's like a 10, like the 7th year is a 10 million club option, which if he's still, at age, he'd be age 28, I believe at that point. $10 million 7 years from now, it would be like a $5 million deal right now, which is again nothing. It escalates to 13 and 15, but again, those are club options. Those are very friendly terms.
Yeah, I would say what the Tigers have essentially done, and what I always, the reason I always liked the extension deals was if you are forced to work within a budget, there's teams that aren't. We see like the Dodgers, it doesn't matter, but the Tigers are working within a budget, and the Sox, whether they should or not, are working within a budget. And what it did was it allowed you to avoid the arbitration issue, where you were risking a bit, but this deal is not terribly risky. But the Sox risked a lot to be able to know exactly what the numbers were on the books going into the season. It made it easier to money manage the deals that Han did. And if those guys hit, those all would have been team-friendly deals, but they just turned out the only team-friendly deal right now is the Lewis Robert deal.
That is extremely friendly. You still have him for 4 more years.
Yeah.
So yeah, my criticism of Rick Hahn is specifically with the Yoan Moncada deal. He certainly did not screw up the Robert deal nearly as bad. So like Moncada, we brought it up at the time. Both, this Colt deal and Moncada, they like, as you mentioned, they bought out their arbitration years. The problem with the Moncada deal is you bought them out at the top of peak value.
Yeah,
they didn't save any money there.
No, they bought them out based on projections.
They bought them out, and then I went through years later after that deal was signed and compared it to what the top players in baseball were getting in those arbitration years. And one was Chris Bryant, and his numbers were basically, he got $20 million like the last year of arbitration. Of course, he's a World Series champion. He was a Rookie of the Year. He was a league MVP. So he would be the top of the arbitration market going forward. And Moncada got those payments automatically without achieving those heights that Chris Bryant did. So that was my argument against the Rick Hahn plan, and that certainly failed him. But I guess that's the difference with this. I'm trying not to be a hypocrite here and pointing out the differences, just the sheer dollars. Essentially $5 million a year throughout his arbitration years. If Colt Keith is a complete bust, that doesn't kill the Tigers. If he's a decent player, which he's projecting to be, it could be a steal. So it's a low risk, high reward.
Yeah.
Keith is 22 years old. The thing is, with this announcement and the excitement over it, he has to be the Tigers' opening day starter at second base. It would be such an embarrassment if he flames out this spring and can't make the major league roster after skyrocketing through the minor league system up to AAA for the second half of last season. If he does not make the opening day roster as the starting second baseman, this would already look bad. And that's all the Tigers are really risking, is just a PR perception, because it would look bad. It does not cripple the organization, I guess, is my overall point.
Yeah. I mean, the reason the Moncada contract looks extremely bad too is this last year, like you said, is $24 million. And
he's going to earn it though. He's motivated. So.
Yeah. The average, it goes 14 million goes against the books, because part of that contract is a club option of 25 million in 2025. So again, I still think he got $17 million last year. He did not deserve 17 million. He got 13 million the year before and 6 million in 2021.
Right.
So
and the other argument is Rick Hahn did multiple deals like that, and one
No,
is
right,
one is really
100.
paid off, and that's ultimately what cost him his job, is because only one of those paid off.
Yeah,
The rest of them
true.
crippled the organization. So
Yeah.
that's the situation. But it does foretell maybe this is the Tigers' strategy going forward, and he's going to sign more players to these deals, thus putting him in the same type of jeopardy Rick Hahn put himself in.
Not if he does it like he just did this one. I mean,
Well,
there's
but
the only
to your
risk you
point, though,
have.
there's
The only risk you have is that idea that you've always said, and now that I've seen it happen to my team, I have to agree with it, that people are motivated by a paycheck, and if you already got paid,
it can be, yeah.
if you already got paid, then
It brings up my next question. What does this mean for Torkelson, who just hit 30 home runs as
I
a major
know
leaguer? What does this mean for Riley Green, who hasn't
$24 million a year, baby.
well, yeah. What do they think about this? Are they
Yeah,
pissed that they
they
gave a deal to Colt Keith, but they didn't? Or maybe they didn't want this kind of deal. Maybe the Cubs or maybe the Tigers did come to them with this kind of deal and they rejected it. I don't know. Maybe this is the first top prospect they could get to do it. I don't know.
maybe
But it's just,
Moncada really knew how average he was,
well, maybe he was just more interested in the dollars and the
and
music
the
videos and
music
everything else.
videos.
Yeah. I think, yeah. And everyone's different. Some players are self-motivated.
Yeah,
they're not necessarily motivated by money. It's hard to say, but
and I don't want to sit here and say Moncada is motivated by money, but based on his comments he just made,
the empirical evidence is there, and comments. Just the WBC last year is what drives me crazy. What a world beater he was. He looked incredible when he was motivated to play for his country,
yeah,
and that did not translate into the regular season whatsoever. But
little bit at the beginning, but not much after that. He got injured like 2.5 weeks in, and the rest
injured,
is history.
yeah, that seems to be the story of his career. But so we'll see with Colt Keith. I have no reason to doubt that he'll be motivated. I think he's be very motivated this spring to make the opening day roster, and the Tigers will be motivated to see him do that. Well, I think that is it for my Tigers. I'm dropping a surprise Oakland A's segment into the podcast.
Woo! Las Vegas A's.
Those fucking A's. I saw an article this week. There's been several throughout, but one written by Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic, who's the most respected baseball journalist, I believe. I'll at least give him that crown. This wasn't specifically what he was talking about, but he was questioning, what everyone's questioning, what the hell's going on with the A's? How are they transitioning from the Oakland Coliseum eventually to Las Vegas to a stadium that doesn't exist, that won't exist until 2028? Meanwhile, their lease in the decrepit Oakland Coliseum, or whatever the fuck it's called now, runs out after this season. Meanwhile, all the approvals have been made. All owners of Major League Baseball have approved the move from Oakland to Las Vegas. What the hell happens after 2024 is the question people are starting to ask or have been asking. Can the A's play, in the Las Vegas, AAA team there, just outside of Vegas? Can they play in their 5-year-old facility? It is a magnificent ballpark. As actually do the menu boards for the Las Vegas ballpark there. But that's a 13, 15,000 seat stadium. Is that suitable for a major league club? I'm not
Well,
sure.
with what they've been drawing, yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. But is Sacramento a possibility in their AAA facility there? I know less about that. That seems a little bit dubious. One option I've heard thrown out there is, would the Giants agree to let the A's play in Oracle Park there in San Francisco?
Probably not.
I think that would take a lot of hoops to jump through, as those two clubs, as most ball clubs in the same city as we've seen, don't really see eye to eye on a lot of things. There have been famous battles of territorial rights for decades part of the problem why the A's haven't been able to build a new stadium is because the Giants' territorial holdings are so vast, they can't find real estate to actually put a ballpark in. So that's a small part of the issues there. But I think that would be the number one solution, if at all possible. Play at Oracle Park. I think that is probably the least likely of any of the scenarios. One scenario that was brought up this week, which I was astounded by and fascinated by, the idea that the A's could simply disband between the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2028. The organization would literally cease to exist. Of course, that's a crazy idea, but the more I thought about it, the more it could actually be plausible, considering everything else that's been going on with the A's. Mind you, this idea came from a website called the SacktownSports.com, I believe. Did a little more research. That's actually a radio station in Sacramento, Sports Talk Radio, 1140 a.m. So it's not just a crackpot podcaster, blogger like you and me. It is someone with some media. It is an actual medium speculating this. They're not reporting this, but the idea, and this is where it's even more dubious. They cited a Bay Area source, said that the A's could disband after the 2024 season. And
that just blows my mind. Like, it's like, all right, well, we'll see you again in 2028.
Exactly. Well, I'll get to that, but the Bay Area source, I mean, it couldn't be any less credible. Technically, I lived in the Bay Area.
You could be a source
from the end of 2024 through the fourth quarter of 2025. So I technically could be that Bay Area source. Ridiculous to report things that way, but it's just speculation. Throw another idea out there. It sounds ludicrous on the surface, but the more you think about it, owner John Fisher is the most frugal owner in all of baseball. We've seen this. That's why the term Moneyball exists, because he forced Billy Beane to try to field a Major League Baseball club without spending money. That's a little bit forced, but we've seen that certainly in this past season, where it is not a Major League ball club. It is not a Major League roster that they're putting on the field. They have an embarrassingly low payroll. Well, what better way to save money and be frugal than to not even have a Major League roster to pay for whatsoever? Why not just disband the A's, wait for 2028 for when your ballpark comes online in Las Vegas? The way the speculation would work is they would have an expansion draft to repopulate the A's organization at the end of the 2027 season, which is hilarious. The idea that they would just go away and then just reform as an expansion team. But if you think about it, there's a lot of talk about a potential expansion of Major League Baseball in general, back or up to 32 teams in the near future. And there's monetary reasons, lots of reasons. I believe this will happen sooner than later. Could 2028 be the right time to have an expansion draft, not just for two new teams, but a third team replenishing the Oakland A's and now the Las Vegas A's? So I still think it's ludicrous, but I'm floored by the idea that this idea is even out there, that the club could disband. And there's some, at least a microbe of plausibility to this that I thought would be fun just to at least bring up on the podcast tonight. So I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, but I love the idea that it could just fucking go away and reform. So
yeah, I mean that would set a new precedent in baseball. Maybe the Sox will just take a break too.
Well, is it a new precedent though? The similar scenario, I guess you could say, in some aspects, would be contraction, which was discussed, I don't know, 15 years, 20 years ago with the Twins potentially being contracted.
Well, yeah, I mean, we lost the Expos.
Well, they were moved. I mean,
Yeah,
that franchise didn't go away; they were moved. But the similar idea that a franchise could just go away has been broached. The questions that I didn't bring up yet were, what happens to the affiliates? I happen to be directly affected by that because my business, my flagship client, is the Lansing Lugnuts, high A affiliate of the Oakland A's. So what happens to the Lugnuts if the A's just go away? Where do you reshuffle all the, there are 30 double A clubs, 30 triple A clubs. There are more high A and low A clubs. Where do those get redistributed if there's only 29 teams in baseball instead of 30? So
I don't see it realistically happening.
I
But
know,
it's a funny story though, that because it does in a weird way seem somewhat plausible just because of the state of the organization.
yes.
But
Just that this idea could even be out there is
yeah,
amazing to me, and it speaks to
yeah,
how inept John Fisher and the A's are as an
yeah.
organization.
I mean, you could even makeshift the football stadium to play baseball games in it in Las Vegas. No one's talked about that, but that could
Well, and
happen.
that's interesting. So yeah,
They could be right back where they were, like just basically like playing in a football stadium again. Like
but considering John Fisher's disdain for spending money, his disdain for his own fans, his disdain for everything, it appears, would he be opposed to having his organization disband with the
I would say,
promise that it would come back?
well, I would say no, but only if he could still collect his $100 million stipend for not having a team on the field.
Well, that's another question too. I'm glad you brought that up because one thing that Ken Rosenthal actually brought up is if the A's do not play in the Bay Area, which is defined rather largely, but it does not reach Sacramento. If they don't play somewhere in the Bay Area, they lose $67 million a year of their TV deal with NBC Sports California. That's
True.
off the table. So they're motivated to stay in San Francisco, in the Bay Area at least. That's why the Oracle Park idea might actually be more plausible than we think. Um, maybe some of that money is paid directly from the A's to the Giants to get this to happen because they will be missing out on that money. So even moving to Sacramento doesn't solve that issue. Moving to Las Vegas creates a whole nother issue, a new TV deal of some sort. So he doesn't have that money just dropping in his lap as you might expect. And that might be another reason disbanding could be appealing to a despot like John Fisher. We only have one segment left. I'd like to take a break. I think you need to take a piss.
What do you mean?
I've seen you kind of doing the nonverbals over there. I need to get a beer. I need to urinate myself. So
Yeah, we're gonna take a break and come back for 10 minutes.
yeah, that's fine.
I like it.
It
I
doesn't
need
matter. We
it.
split these up into different segments anyway, so
I need it.
how many people consume it this way anyway. So we will be right back here on the Wordhole Media Network.
Wordhole Media.
As we come back from break, I've switched to War Pig's Blinding Light Show.
Blinding Light Show.
Yeah.
What is that? An IPA of some sorts?
It's an IPA with bold citrus and tropical flavors. So
that sounds like a good IPA.
Delicious.
I'm still drinking my Surly Furious out of Minnesota. The only good thing that's ever come out of Minnesota.
Let's not fucking get going on this because there's a lot of good music out of Minnesota, but someone's ears don't work correctly over in the Michigan area.
Is that a Minnesota accent?
I don't know what the fuck it was.
Well, we came back. We're back.
We're back and we're comfortable.
Yeah, now we're comfortable. That last segment was a little rough.
That was a good urination, I gotta say.
Yeah. It's always better when you hold it longer, but
yeah.
We are back with our final segment. I thought it needed our due attention. Aesthetics. It is a special aesthetics, special to my heart. This might be the first aesthetics I wasn't really excited about because no matter what, I want to talk about all the new uniforms that are coming out. So we've certainly focused on the Nike City Connect uniforms that have come out over the last several years. But there's several uniform changes that were released in the last couple weeks that are surprisingly all extremely underwhelming, or to some degrees. I guess the Yankees announcement was a little bit cooler than the others that we'll discuss with the Nationals and Marlins. But the Yankees announced that they will be removing the white piping from their road uniforms, which you probably never even noticed. They have probably the simplest road uniforms in baseball, just the grays with a block New York across the chest, a little bit of striping, piping on the sleeves. They are removing the white outline from New York across the chest and removing any stripes from the sleeves. There was two blue stripes and a white stripe on their sleeve, on the ends of their sleeves before. What somebody pointed out is, and I didn't notice this at first, they look very plain when you see the renderings. I think you've got the renderings up there.
Yeah, I'm looking at them right now.
They're very plain, but what they actually recreate is the like 1950s, 1960s glory days road uniforms that the Yankees used to have. You know, the days of Mickey Mantle and Joe DiMaggio. That's pretty much they're going back to what that looks like, which I think is kind of cool. That it's I mean, as a designer, I've always said, and my aesthetic is always simple is better. Simpler is always better. These are as simple as they get. They're not. They were already had the simplest road uniforms in baseball. Now they're even simpler without any white outlines, any piping whatsoever. So I don't know. What did you think of the Yankees announcement?
I could care fucking less. It's like so lame to me. I get it. I get everything you said, but it's really just, it's not even a new uniform. It's like we're going back to old uniform.
If they didn't,
fucking great. Who cares?
If they didn't make this announcement, I'm sure people would notice, but I'm not sure you would have noticed, or other than designers like me or uniform honks. I don't think you would have even noticed. So I think it's cool just because it kind of goes back to the throwback flannel uniform era. But yeah, I think you're going to give them 2 middle fingers down. I'm going to go 1 middle finger up just for the historic reference, 1 middle finger down just because they look boring as hell. And like I said, I don't think anyone's going to even notice that they made a change. What do you want to move to next? What do you got up there?
Let's continue on the simpler changes. Let's go to the Marlins, which is essentially the Yankees change.
Except they have no history. This is not a historic reference.
Well,
so.
I mean, they've won a few World Series in there, right?
No history. I refuse to acknowledge those World Series.
Especially one.
Yeah. So from what I can tell, they changed their word mark on the color of the word mark on their home jerseys.
Correct.
It was a black on black, essentially was what their home jerseys were. They had a kind of a pinkish hue, a magenta, and a cyan blue outline around black lettering on a black jersey, which was admittedly difficult to see. And I think they figured out they needed to make the word mark itself white instead of black with the same color outlines.
Yeah.
That seems like seems like that should have always been that way. I'm not sure why they thought black on black would work.
Whoop-de-doo is what I say to this one.
Yeah, I'm not sure that needed an announcement or a unveiling at their Fish Fest. I don't know what the fuck they call their fan fest for the Marlins. I believe they did introduce a new blue home uniform, or like an alternate uniform that's got the similar white word mark across the front. Great, whatever. I think this is another example of an update to a uniform that if no one said anything, I'm not sure 95% of the population would even notice anything had changed. So this, since it has no relevance to a gloried history.
No, this
you got more information there? Breaking news?
Actually, this change is only specific to the black jersey. So that one of the other pictures you sent me,
is incorrect.
There's the blue jersey, but that blue jersey contains the original black logo.
Okay. All right. Well, now we have now succeeded in the feat that I didn't think was possible. Is as annoyed and as bored as you were with aesthetics for the majority of its existence, I am now equally bored with this segment.
Yeah.
Now that we've gotten to
I'm
the,
still, even with that information, I'm going 2 middle fingers down.
I am going 2 middle fingers down as well to you
All
fucking
right.
Marlins, because you're ruining my own favorite segment, aesthetics. But fortunately, we have a third uniform update to talk
Yes.
about. It's actually two new jerseys for the Washington Nationals. The Nationals released a new road uniform,
Yes.
road grays with block lettering saying Washington, replacing the script
Correct.
Washington they had. I loved the script. The script Washington I thought looked
I
great. They still
know.
have
I
the
liked it.
script Nationals as an alternate jersey, but I like I don't like the block lettering for Washington. It's not great. They also introduced a V-neck pullover, white alternate uniform with blue sleeves. It has a different logo. I believe
Yeah.
they've used this logo. I've seen it before, at least. I don't know where they use it. It's got the capital silhouette in the background with a W over the top. It's
Yeah.
on the left chest.
It's being used on a jersey for the first time.
Okay, it must have been maybe it was a sleeve patch. I've seen it before, at least, but yeah, on the jersey, who knows? But the idea that it's a pullover, a V-neck pullover, that's kind of a throwback idea to the 70s and 80s. I don't know. Are there any other teams that are doing pullovers?
I don't think so, but I fucking love it. I think
Okay,
this jersey is sharp.
okay, we're back. Aesthetics
Yeah.
is back because you're fired up about it.
Yeah, the arm patch, the arm patch has the DC like interconnected with the city silhouette on it.
Okay, I've got comments about that specifically. They've used that DC interconnected D and C logo. They've had it on hats before. I always thought that was super cool. That could have been the primary hat logo for a long time. It's at least worthy of a sleeve patch. But the shape of Washington DC in the background, I had no idea that was the shape of Washington DC.
I know, when I look at it, I'm like, oh, what is this? What a weird. It's very blocked. It's like, what's crazy about it?
Again,
it has three of the points, like 3 of the sides are just
straight lines,
perfectly straight.
Yeah, it's
I don't think I've ever seen a state like that.
As a graphic design dork, I also like maps. If we're gonna get as nerdy as we possibly can, cartography is a interest of mine. Somehow it escaped me the shape of Washington DC. It's just not very famous, so you wouldn't really know what the shape is. But I guess I recognized it. I understood what they were doing with it. I understood that it was the shape of the city or the district itself. So
District of Columbia.
I think it's pretty cool. I like that part of it too. What were the other? I sent you a thing with a couple details about.
Well, the other thing was just that it was the first V-neck pullover Nationals team history.
That's where I'm curious if other teams have done this. I don't remember talking about this. I don't remember seeing it. I'm wondering if this is now the new trend. If this is either the beginning or the start of a new trend where we're gonna start. Everything retro is cool. Everyone knows that. And the thing we haven't seen a ton of clearly is the retro pullover craze come back to baseball. So if this isn't the first, I wonder if this is the start of a new trend that we're going to start seeing V-necks throughout baseball. So that makes me wonder, like the Tigers did have some really cool V-necks, pullovers.
Yeah.
Back in their heyday, really, when they were winning World Series, not just going to World Series. 1984, they had a navy pullover with orange, white, and navy stripes around the cuffs with a big, the old Detroit D, old English D. That we might be seeing as the Tigers are rumored to be having a Nike City Connect jersey in the next couple of years. Not this year, unfortunately. Did the Sox ever have a pullover?
Oh, you don't know the pullover jersey?
I'm sure we did a whole history of White Sox uniforms for one.
The pullover jersey, the most infamous pullover jersey is the softball jersey that drove Chris Sale to chop.
Of course, you're right. I think of that as a category unto itself with a collar and it's untucked. It's not cuffed. I think of the pullover as having like an elastic band at the bottom and around the arms. So yeah, I guess you're right.
I think they
Of course
had a
you're right.
robin egg blue one that was like that.
Okay, it's hard to keep up with the myriad uniforms you've had over.
Oh, actually, the actual SOX, the 83.
That is, yes.
That is the
okay. So you've been
V-neck
wearing well, yeah, we've been remiss this whole conversation.
Yeah.
You have been wearing the pullovers for several years now. Has this
Yeah,
been your
for Sunday
uniform?
baseball game. Yeah,
Yeah.
Sunday uniforms. Yeah,
So you guys, of course, started this trend.
Of course
and
we
maybe-
did. I
maybe
mean, we are one of the best-selling, highest-selling SOX socks hat. I mean, they made a fucking
Yes.
documentary about it because it's fucking historic. So
we were going to do a whole segment about that documentary. We never did.
Well, it's like 22 minutes and not that great, but
No, you watched. I didn't watch all of it, so I was.
Yeah.
You and I haven't talked about it. I was thinking that could be next week's aesthetic segment, but it sounds like you're not even interested in that.
no, I'd watch it again and talk about it. It's interesting the relation to hip-hop.
All right.
I'm in.
All right, we've got homework then. I got to go watch that, and you got to rewatch it, and we've got another aesthetic segment. Hopefully, it'll be more interesting than this one.
Well, I gotta say, you know, here's what I don't mind about the Washington away jersey. I admit, I'm with you. I love the script.
It was red. It was red script with a blue outline. It's just a classic baseball script.
Yeah,
on a gray uniform. It was perfect. They didn't need to fuck with it.
But I like the idea that they're essentially they're trying to pull off a Yankees here with the road block lettering. Yeah. And then you keep the home, the Yankees have the NY obviously on their home jersey, but then they'll have the Nationals in the script font still for when they're at home and not wearing this V-neck jersey. But so I don't hate it. I don't hate it enough to split my middle fingers on this one because I so love the V-neck jersey.
Okay. Wow. You're giving it 2 middle fingers up?
I'm going 2 middle fingers up after I've been given 4 middle fingers down.
That's impressive for you. I am going to buck tradition. I'm going to go 1 middle finger down, 1 middle finger up because I don't like the block lettering on the road. Honestly, I don't like the look of the pullover. The pullover, it bothers me. The blue sleeves and the white. I don't know what it is about. I don't think it looks that great. I don't think that capital silhouette is that great with the W. Something about the W being too plain.
I like it.
I actually really like the interlocking DC and the shape of the district behind it. That could have been a really cool primary logo on the chest. So that's why my vote is split. I don't like their execution of the pullover V-neck, but I like the idea that the pullover V-neck is coming back, that they're trying to help resurrect that with your White Soxes also. So that's why I have mixed feelings, mixed middle fingers over it. But this became a more interesting conversation than I thought it would be. So we have resurrected aesthetics. We might have an aesthetics next episode talking about the White Sox uniform documentary. I do have one final question regarding your White Sox before we close this show.
Oh God, really?
Did they solve that shooting mystery at Sox Park?
No, Guntgate continues to remain a mystery. It is going to go down in the lore of the JFK shooting.
Is this why you're building a brand new ballpark? Because you have to bury some bodies or something, like to get rid of the evidence or whatever's happening with this.
Possibly. I mean, it could be. It could go that far.
I think it's a great way to get people, like, make rumors of a new ballpark being built, to get people to stop asking the question I just asked, to forget about this shooting mystery. It must be solved.
Here's going to be the $1 million question for this season. When I go to the ballpark this year, will the Sox have invested in the technology that the Cubs use?
Yes.
That actually all the major venues are starting to use, where I can just walk through with my keys in my pocket and all that, because it senses whether or not I've got gunpowder.
Yeah, it's not a metal detector. It's an explosive detector.
Yeah.
Which seems like a much better way to do things, and a much more efficient way to do things as well.
There's probably a little concern on the south side. You might have a knife on you, maybe a shiv or something. So you
Wow.
gotta. I don't know how you do that, but
Wow.
but you would have at least prevented Guntgate from ever taking place. So
Guntgate or Fupa?
yes,
That is my question. So
I'll always I love I like Guntgate. It's got
that's
a
pretty
nice.
good. That's pretty good.
I like the alliteration of it, of the Guntgate.
Alliteration is good.
Yes.
My goal here is I'm going to ask this question every episode. My goal, though, is to catch you by surprise when you don't remember that I'm going to ask you this question.
No, your goal is to wear me down to where I finally make a fucking phone call to someone.
Do your own investigative
yes,
journalism and
I'll be like,
find the facts.
I host a podcast. What is up with the shooter?
Yes, Peter M. Veneeri from
Wait, it's
MajorLeagueAholes.com.
called Major League A-Holes? We're not going to give you any information.
This sounds quite reputable. What do you mean?
Wait, and in the hole?
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
This is sockstypething.com. That might work better, actually.
Yeah.
Sockstypething.com. Yeah, that sounds a little better, but a little better.
Yeah.
Well, yes, the question remains. The truth is out there. Hopefully you or someone else, intrepid journalist, will find the truth sooner than later. So until then, I will continue to ask this question every episode.
I may actually just fucking make a call just to shut you the fuck up.
I would love it. This would be perfect. This would be fantastic.
I'm gonna have to put out my
dude, record the call. Can you record the call? You'd have to tell them you're recording them, I guess. But
would you mind if I recorded this? Maybe I'll just make a walk down to the station.
Yeah, just have your phone going.
I'm gonna call Brandon Johnson's office because he's remember he was I don't know if you remember this, but he was the one who like the acting police chief made comments and then he was like, shut the fuck up, basically.
I think Jerry shut those comments down too. So there's a concerted effort.
Yes.
One might call that a conspiracy.
What?
I don't know. We'll have to find out. We'll have to wait and find out. The truth is out there. Well, with that, I think we can wrap up this first episode of February. I think.
Thank God we stopped so I could pee. That made this last segment so much better.
Yeah, I feel great about this episode now. So I think we're 2 hours in at this point, but we had a lot of shit to talk about, mainly thanks to your White Sox. So congratulations over there. And it's not all negative. So that's the first time in a couple of years that we've been talking only negatively about your White Sox. So well done.
Yeah, I mean, I think we established they would dominate the Cubs in the World Series. So
with that, we will wrap up this episode number 140. You can find us on social media at Major League A-Holes and at SoxTypeThing. You can find us on the web at MajorLeagueAholes.com and SoxTypeThing.com. You can find our merchandise at ASSTHETICS.shop. ASSTHETICS.
This fucking beer is delicious, by the way.
Yeah, I've had probably too many Surly Furiouses at this point. But also check out our YouTube page, our burgeoning YouTube page, which is growing by leaps and bounds every day. So you can subscribe. Apparently subscriptions help us if you do that over there. We get more.
Subscribe, folks.
Yeah, please subscribe. Like us. Don't like us. Just watch us. Listen to us. Whatever. So you can also find this podcast anywhere you'd like to find a podcast. So with that, I'm going to declare this podcast is over. Peace.
Peace. Woo-hoo. What's up?
Word Hole Media.